always wanted to be a superhero. We were walking along the hiking trail, she a few feet in front of me. I was trying, unsuccessfully, not to stare at her butt, as her hips swayed in her olive drab hiking pants. She slowed and looked over her shoulder, catching me in the act. "With what kind of powers?" she asked. "X-ray vision?" I caught up to her, put my hands on her waist, pulling her towards me, pressing my nose into the back of her neck so I could smell her shampoo. "I had a cape and everything." She turned, gave me a quick kiss on the lips after checking to make sure no one was nearby. "It was red with gold lettering. My mom made it. It said Super Davy on the back." "Super Davy?" She took my hand and started back along the path. "That's cute." "Cute? It was awesome!" I let go of her hand and struck a heroic pose. I wore that thing wherever I could, around the house, in the backyard, at family gatherings. There I'd be, jumping off the back porch, cape fluttering in the breeze behind me, running around at a 4th of July barbecue, arms spread like wings, making whooshing noises like I was flying, hot dog in one hand, mustard smeared on my face. She watched, laughing, while I spun in circles with my arms out to the side, looking for evildoers to vanquish. Her laughter came easy, soft, and natural. I loved that cape. I wonder what happened to it. "Did you wear it to school?" she asked, taking my hand back in hers. This portion of the hike was without trees, and we were beginning to sweat. We could hear the ocean crashing against the cliffs to our right. We walked closely together, our shoulders occasionally brushing, though the trail was too narrow, and it was too hot, really, to be in each other's space. "Are you kidding me? I got picked on enough at school without declaring myself #1 loser in a red cape." "Picked on?" We'd reached a branch in the path that led closer to the edge of the cliff, where a bench overlooked the ocean. We sat in silence while I remembered the gangs of older boys who were my daily tormentors. They chose me because I was smaller, an easy target, even though they outnumbered me 10-1. "Kids can be cruel," she said, placing her hand against my cheek. I felt, only for a second, the pressure of a sob build in the back of my throat. It's funny how some things stay with you, no matter how long ago they happened. I guess that's the appeal of the superhero to nerd kids like me. They're impervious to pain. I looked off into the sea, too embarrassed for the moment to make eye contact. We were new together, still in that space of dancing around the question of what, exactly, we were going to be. A few months later, she caught a cold. I was sitting on the edge of her bed, with her head in my lap, her bare feet twisting the yellow duvet covers between her toes. I listened to her sniffle, stroking her hair. "Thank you for the present," she said, her nose all stuffed up. On the floor at the foot of the bed was a gray plastic tub that I had filled with vitamins, supplements, Kleenex, a neti pot, and a couple of airplane bottles of tequila. I'd run masking tape around the lid and labeled it, "Caution, sickness extraction kit, open in case of emergency only." I had ridden my bicycle to see her. My car was in the shop. She was toying with the edge of my spandex bike shorts, pulling them, letting them snap back against my thigh. "You really have to wear these to bike?" You know, secretly I got into sports like biking, running, and triathlon so I could pretend to be a superhero. I mean, when else can you run around the streets covered in Lycra and not get arrested? I recalled my first day of practice, a blistering August day before my sophomore year of high school. We ran 6 miles total with 6 hill repeats thrown in the middle. I'd never run farther than 2 miles without stopping. I just fixed my eyes on the shoulder of the runner and hung on. By the end, the bottoms of my feet were so hot and blistered that I'd had to take my shoes off and walk around in my cotton tube socks. I had no idea they made socks just for runners back then. When it was over, Coach Joe, this skinny, gritty masters runner in his 40s with a gravelly voice, took me aside for a talk. He told me he was glad to have me on the team. He told me I looked really strong. No one had ever used the word strong to describe me before. I wanted to tell her what that felt like, but her cold had gotten the better of her, and she'd already fallen asleep. Months later, at my place, she pored over the comic books in my living room bookcase. "Were you always a comic book geek?" "No, not till after college." She fingered the spines till she found one she liked and pulled it off the shelf. "I'm not saying they're cool, mind you. I know comic books are in right now." "Yeah, aren't you supposed to call them graphic novels?" She opened the book in the middle to a full-page spread of a wrestler flying off the ropes to tackle a space squid from planet Rigel 9. I winced at how geeky it must seem. They're comic books. I love reading them. I walked up behind her to catch that clean cherry blossom smell of her hair again. I don't try to put on airs. She flipped through page after page of my favorite escapist fantasy, and I thought about why I hadn't ever picked them up in my youth. Running always came first. 50 to 80 miles a week, every week, for 5 years. That's somewhere between 12 and 20,000 miles. Who had time for made-up heroes? Late afternoon light through the south-facing window caught wisps of steam curling out of the fridge. I fetched a beer for us to share. My second-floor apartment held the heat until well into the evening. Beads of sweat gathered on the bottles despite the breeze that blew in from the front door and out the open window in the back. 4 beers later, we sat on the couch with our feet in each other's laps. I tried to talk about other things, her work, her friends, her trip to Europe. We'd be getting up obscenely early the next morning so I could drive her to the airport. But she kept bringing the conversation back to me. Did you like it? Was it hard running all those miles? I loved it. All that beer with no dinner in my belly, I began to wax philosophical. I've never felt happier than when running. Never felt closer to anyone than I was to my teammates. We existed in a different world, a whole different plane of time where everything but us moved at a slower pace. We could have run 100 miles flat without stopping. We were impervious to pain. She took a sip from the beer and handed it to me. Last bit. I considered the bottle for a while, finished it off. In some ways, it was the only thing I've ever really loved. And then, they told me I couldn't do it anymore. At 10 till 4 in the morning, she raced around the apartment, searching cabinets and drawers, pulling clothes out of her suitcase. What are you doing? She walked over to her backpack and rummaged frantically through it. We don't need to be up for another half hour. My pain meds, she said. I think I left them at home. She'd hurt her back a couple of weeks before. If it locks up in the middle of a 6-hour flight, I don't know how I'll make it. Is it bothering you now? It's too early to tell. She flitted between her suitcase and the bathroom. I guess it will be okay. It was not going to be okay. I got up, grabbed my jeans off the floor. There's still time to get to your place and back. It's a half hour out of the way. You won't get any sleep. Sleep, I said, is for the weak. On the drive, she asked me why they made me stop running. I told her about my injury, how it wasn't going to get any better, even after the surgery. She listened as we drove through the morning layer of fog. She cracked her window, and we listened to the air rushing through. Was running really the only thing you ever loved? I do not answer. I don't know if it's a conversation we're ready to have. At 5 in the morning, I can't quite muster up the courage to find out. Instead, I take her hand. I'm sorry that you had to give it up. She leaned her head against my shoulder. Thank you for taking me all the way back to my place. You're always so nice to me. I told her that she was welcome, but I couldn't understand why she thought it was such a big deal. She's so good to be around, so easy to make smile, so ready to say thank you. It made me want to do more, be better. Maybe not the only thing, I said finally. Maybe I just needed someone whose hero I wanted to be.
David Tuffy.